Hello, friends. It's your midweek Chapo, coming a little bit later in the week than usual, but I hope you can forgive us. So,
you better fucking forgive us. Get over it.
You are disgusting fucking hogs. If you look at it proportionally, about 2% of you showed up in Chicago for our two shows. Fuck you that you would even try to make demands. Die.
guys, this week is all about solidarity, okay? We've got...
solidarity against our listeners.
Let's do the roll call. It's me, Will Menaker. Joining me this week, Felix Biederman.
Hello, everyone.
Matt Chrisman.
Hi.
Virgil Texas.
Hello, how are you?
And sitting in as our guest, our friend Shuja Hader. Shuja.
That's me. I'm glad to be back.
Well, this week's episode, I feel like we got a lot to talk about. A lot's been happening, and there's some fire that needs to be spit. And of course, I'm talking about the events that happened in Charlottesville over the weekend. We didn't get a chance to address them, and I think that's probably good that we allowed for some time for things to sort of cool down and have people reflect. But there is obviously still...
Well, we needed to wait to get the president's reaction, just so that we could take our cues for how to understand
Well, we're
it.
committed to hearing from both sides before we make a decision.
There's many sides,
Yeah.
Virgil.
Yeah, we don't want to put our chips down right away.
Exactly.
I was waiting for Scott Adams' comment.
He's got a whole side to himself.
I was getting ready. We're going to spend the whole episode just blasting Donald Trump for like basically his open support of white supremacy, but he condemned all that. So
that's true. Yeah,
like he clearly condemned the Nazis and the KKK, but also stood up for many of the fine statue enthusiasts who were marching along with them and were attacked for no reason. We're joking, but I mean, what happened in Charlottesville was obviously awful and unspeakable. But I guess, like, in looking back on it, I want to talk about Shuja. We're having you on because you wrote an article that came out in Jacobin this week that happened like right after that this happened. I remember I was talking to you about it over the weekend. And you said you just like couldn't sleep that night. Was it Saturday night?
It was Saturday. I was spending the whole day just being fucking online in the worst way that I was tracking every terrible thing that was going on.
There's no good way to be online.
But this, there's no good way, but there's worse ways, and this was one of the worst. And just by the end of the day, couldn't sleep, thought about it all night, woke up, and I wrote this piece. That wasn't, it wasn't just about what had happened, but it was about the way that people talked about what was happening and the way that people were talking about the activists who showed up to face the Nazis even before it had happened. And some of the shit I recounted in this article, started a couple of days beforehand when people were already doing some many sides shit that Donald Trump picked right up on.
And what was great about this article is that you wrote it before Donald Trump's bizarre press conference at Trump Tower, where, among other things, he used the phrase alt-left to describe, the instigators in his mind of violence in Charlottesville, which is brilliant on a number of levels because, like, now alt-left has now become a term exactly like fake news. In that
right.
I described it as passing through the same human centipede, and the end of that human centipede is just shitting into all of our mouths. But like the people who created the term alt-left are exactly the same people who created the term fake news.
Yeah,
it's the resistance.
Donald Trump is like both in shape and ability like the Nintendo character Kirby. Anything that the libs throw at him, he inhales in his wide mouth while gesticulating wildly. Anything that anyone throws at him. If he goes to Saudi Arabia, he becomes a Wahhabist. If he talks to Hu Jintao, he believes in the Chinese method.
And it only just inflates him.
Yeah.
Just like Kirby.
When the liberals say fake news, alternative facts, Kafifi, alt-left, he can deploy it with his tactical mastery of screaming through holes in his brain at a press conference and turn everything back around on them.
Okay, I mean, we should be clear about what happened though, right? Which is that there is this huge Unite the Right rally, which was this very well planned and well organized event that
for them
that was put on by neo-Nazis, white supremacists, the alt-right, whatever the fuck you want to call
Some
them.
Proud Boys, I think a few 3%ers, those militia types.
Whatever. I mean, this was, like I said, this was unambiguously an open, organized display of fascism on the streets of America. And there were counter-protesters, brave people who wanted to stand up against that and didn't, wanted to have some kind of, pushback against this. And here's the thing. It turned violent, and a woman was killed when, I'm sure as you all know, one of these assholes just drove a car into a crowd full of people. Heather Hare.
A fucking central casting fail son.
Yeah, Matt.
A guy who hits every fucking check mark on who these assholes are. Fucking washed out of the army, couldn't hack boot camp, which now in the 21st century is basically like family double dare. Then he went back home to live with his mom, who he beat up because she tried to stop him from gaming all the time. Like, these guys always, the response when you make these jokes is, wow, very original. It's like, it's impossible to not talk about this because that's what you fucking are. You are people whose brains have been broken by living in your parents' fucking basement and not getting laid and feeling like you should be in charge of the world and, never getting blown by what the hell, Tomb Raider?
Yeah, there was this story somewhere that said that guy was widely known as the Nazi of his high school. It's like, how long does it take people to like figure this shit out?
They should get rid of that position on JV football teams.
Honestly,
Yeah.
it's been long enough.
But no, yeah, he was like, if you were gonna write a Muad'Dib character for like just worthless lumps of Nazi shit who embody every characteristic of their movement, it would be this guy. He is
He's
the
in his
chosen
yearbook,
one in every
most
way.
likely to turn up at a Nazi rally and
Yeah.
murder someone.
And here's the thing, like, if you saw these images of their, like, torchlit parade or any of these assholes in the streets when any of, like, the fighting was happening, which included, among other things, like a gang of people just beating someone with pipes in a parking garage, like, it's easy to, like, take notice, or the guy who killed this woman. It's easy to take notice of how sort of buffoonish and dorky and just, like, dumb looking all these people are. But, like, I don't think that necessarily precludes how fucking dangerous and scary it is.
Yeah.
Like, fascism is stupid. Like, it is ugly and idiotic in every way. And it sort of, like, relies on that. And it's like one necessarily doesn't have to preclude the other. And the thing that, like, I think when we talk about, like, the violence that occurred here, and we're going to talk about, like, this idea about, like, what both sides mean, or violence on both sides. I think we need to be very clear that organized demonstrations of fascism are people announcing their intention to do violence. It is violence. These people are saying, they were chanting in the streets, "The Jew will not replace us," and "blood and soil." These people are announcing their intention to perform a genocide in their community in America. That is their goal. That is what they believe in. And that is what they will tell to anyone who will listen. And the more they do this shit, and the more organized and the more comfortable they feel marching in the streets, the closer they are to achieving that goal. So there, in my opinion, there is no such thing about violence on both sides. This rally was violence, and any violence that's done in retaliation or against these people is, in my opinion, completely justified.
Yeah, and the thing that we would sort of see before this, and I think like everyone was kind of guilty about, most people were, of comparing these people to like the Third Reich and going, well, these guys aren't anything like the NDSAP before they came to power. They're stupid and lazy and slovenly, and they failed at everything. And it's like, what do you think those guys were?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like they were all like failed something or other, who had to drop out of cavalry school because they got addicted to morphine and they believed in magic. Like
Right.
that's not a preclusion to them doing some incredibly fucked up shit.
Yeah,
that we've
Heinrich
seen.
Himmler was a failed chicken farmer, which was the 1920s version of gaming.
Now, finally, one of these assholes has just straight up murdered someone, and the person he killed, among injuring many other, Heather Hare, was there marching with the IWW and DSA. And this is where we get into how fucking unbearable it is, and almost perfect that Trump used the phrase alt-left to blame these people for instigating violence or participating in violence that is morally equal to that of those carried out by neo-Nazi fascists. And what's so funny about that, and like we said, it's that because it has followed exact same pattern of fake news, is that the same people, not on the right, but on like centrist liberals who have deployed the phrase alt-left for about a year now to slander and really obfuscate any difference between themselves and anyone further to their left, is both disgusting and hilarious, because all these people look like absolute shit right now, and they are all of them. I'm not even going to name their names at this point. You guys can say if you want to. You probably know who I'm talking about. They are scrubbing their Twitter accounts fast right now. They're just searching the term alt-left and deleting tweets because they rightly understand how fucking bad they look.
Well, it's the same shit that we were talking about the last time I was on, that the right has always been good at, looking at what like people in the center and on the left are saying that they can pick up, like identity politics, for example, and then it was fake news, and now it's all left. I mean, it just presents an opportunity to strengthen their side, and these guys never punch right. Whereas, the kind of mainstream liberal, democratic, centrist people are always punching to their left and weakening our own side.
And like the whole point of the phrase alt-left as it was invoked by these people, it really, in my opinion, really goes back to the never-ending 2016 primary between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, where these people, the one thing that they could not allow to happen, or not allow themselves even to believe, is that the dispute between Bernie Sanders supporters and Hillary Clinton supporters broke down on basically a normal left to right spectrum, in that Bernie Sanders was clearly a candidate running to the left of Hillary Clinton, and his supporters were to the left of Hillary Clinton and her policies. They couldn't allow that to be the case, because then they would have to agree that they are fairly more conservative than a broad swath of young people and the Democratic Party base. So they made the primary into this bullshit thing about Bernie bros and racism and sexism supposedly on the left, to create an equivalence between their left-wing critics represented by Bernie Sanders and his supporters and the alt-right. And this idea that they are in subtle and obvious ways equally racist and sexist, because they are attacking a woman and they are misogynist or racist in the same way, or at least in the same avenue as the alt-right.
Yeah, I mean, Sarah Jones and Ryan Cooper both wrote kind of histories of this, that you saw at first, like Sean Hannity started saying alt-left all the time. And then it just got kind of picked up among, Joy Reid and Joan Walsh and Tom Watson, the usual suspects. But then there was that article by James Walcott that I don't know if we have up that we can look at.
Yeah, you quote it in your article.
Yeah, but that, like, the real thing that it did was that it took that Bernie bro concept and just like linked it directly. Like, it used to be horseshoe theory, right? That like the left and the right end up in the same general area. It just brought the ends together and said, actually, they're exactly the same. And he says some wild shit in that article. I don't know if you have it.
Yeah, no, Walcott says in the Vanity Fair article, he uses the alt-left and Bernie bro, but he says there is a kinship between the far left and the white supremacist alt-right. And you're paraphrasing him here, but you say they are united by disillusionment with Obama's presidency, loathing of Hillary Clinton, and disgust with identity politics, as well as a craving for a climatic reckoning that will clear the stage for a bold tomorrow.
Yeah, the way he ends that article is with, he says I think literally the sentence that it ends with is "Go deep state, go."
Yes,
it's an endorsement.
I remember this.
Fucking Christ. Oh my fucking God.
Go deep state Rangers.
Yeah, I'm with him until the point about the reckoning. What's the reckoning that we want?
Revolution, I guess. I think
we like to. Yeah, it's insane. It's insane extremism to want to ever change anything.
Right.
Because we live in the Panglossian best of all possible worlds. I mean, that's the unstated assumption of all of this, is that we live in this Whig trajectory towards perfection that can't be disrupted with any kind of aggressive or intemperate action. Is that slow measured change will always bring us to a better place, and that it's in any attempt to change that trajectory through mass action is inherently extremist and illogical and hateful somehow, regardless of what the goals are.
By the way, with James Wolcott, I don't know if you guys saw this, that a while back he wrote this article that was something like the best Twitter feeds to follow to keep up with the Russia connection or whatever. And one of his like people who he cited as the best sources was Louise Mensch.
Woo!
Genius.
Okay.
And he said, the exact phrase he used was he said, Louise Mensch is Sherlock Holmes in jet boots.
What the fuck does that
I don't know
mean?
what the fuck that means, but it's like you're talking about someone who said Theodore Herzl was an anti-Zionist. You're talking about someone who thought Charlie Hebdo was a guy.
That is what Sherlock Holmes would do if he was in rocket boots and didn't know what time in history he was in, was flying around confused and terrified. But
Like, Watson, who's this guy Charlie Hebdo?
But going back a little bit, like this form of liberalism, it's the same thing we've seen in liberalism in the contemporary period, but it's more explicit in these past few years, that it seeks to completely change history, to cut out parts, insert other parts, so that they are always on the left. They're always to the left of whatever. The crime bill now throughout history was supported by all black voters. Black voters are now a monolith. Russia did not fight the Nazis. We're actually to the left of Sanders voters because of some undefined policy goal we have to defeat racism, our secret plan to defeat racism. And for a while, like in that 2016 primary, it was funny and it was maddening at times, but it was kind of like, well, this isn't an immediate danger right now, that there are this group of people who completely skew the world around them. But now it's become very apparent that with so many threats in front of us, with the collapse of so many of their institutions, that these people cannot be trusted to do a fucking thing. No. And a lot of them, like a lot of the people we're talking about who we're not naming, who did that alt-left shit, they still fell back on it. They said some disgusting shit. Don't even fucking screen cap them. Don't fucking think of them. Don't talk about them. Let their fucking kids not even know who their name was, like Captain Vidal. Fuck them. But the ones in power, it is more essential than ever that they are fucking out of there.
And again, and part of this slander was the idea that the alt-left quote, or Bernie, the alt-left, to whatever, to whoever is criticizing them or making fun of them on Twitter, there is always this absolute slander that, like, after the election, we were the ones who wanted to, have a separate peace with the fascists, or that we secretly would I'll have a deal with you, alt-right. How about universal health care for white people only? And this outrageous slander that that they are the ones who are even they're fucking self-proclaimed the resistance. And here's what brings the fucking lie to it. It wasn't share blue people or fucking DNC people or people waving Hillary Clinton signs that was in the streets actually fighting these fucking Nazis. And by the way, standing up against racism and for the fucking rights that we do have and should have in this fucking country against people whose explicit stated goal is to eradicate them. Those are the people who were standing up, and the people who that asshole drove his fucking car into was the IWW. I think there were PSL people, the DSA.
WWP.
Yeah, they were
BLM.
RCP,
Black Lives Matter. Yeah.
All the whole span of the left, left of us,
Yeah.
Yeah, but who is posting?
That's true. That's the real question.
Who is roasting the shoes that look like a fam that those Nazis were wearing on Twitter? It was the resistance.
Yeah, the resistance was taking all those pictures and saying who looked like a fam and why. And that's what got people out there.
But this was the other thing that came up in the article was that there were these articles that came out from liberal pundits like Peter Beinart, who wrote this thing about Antifa, about leftist activists who they make it a strategy to kind of confront fascists, protect their community, make sure that people don't get hurt by Nazis. And he said, I think the phrase he used was that they are actually unlikely allies to the Nazis. And it's like, were you there? Was Peter Beinart there, saving the lives of people who were under threat from Nazis? No, it was actually the same people he was talking about rendering equivalent to them. And it's like, what's the equivalent? Like, you got one side that's saying we want to destroy Jews and blacks and Muslims, and the other side that's like, we want to destroy Windows.
Yeah.
Like, is that the fucking equivalence here?
Well, but they do think that they're equivalent in the sense that both sides, by coming out into the street and engaging in that kind of direct action, are not doing politics right. And by doing that, are basically reducing our civility and the norms and processes that we use to determine political outcomes.
Right.
There's are appropriate channels for doing that, and it's op-eds and voting basically. And to do anything other than that is to disrupt the order of democratic debate that we have in this country. I think that's the way that they would think of it, as you're out in the streets, and certainly if you're doing any kind of property damage or physical altercations with an opponent, regardless of what your point of view is, by doing that, you are disrupting normal democratic actions and or normal democratic processes.
Right, because
Yeah.
doing politics right is basically making excuses for the Iraq War.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Beinart, that's how it
fucking,
works.
as far as Peter Beinart goes, it's rich of him to talk about fucking advocating violence or supporting violence in the street. He did it the right way by writing op-ed after op-ed, supporting the Iraq War and attacking its opponents.
Beinart is such a perfect guy for that fucking viewpoint, because it isn't about violence. It's about, like you said, the method of doing politics. And what Beinart believes, his sort of neocon light and liberal Zionism, just two very, actually, if you look at them, very extreme points of view, but because they're in that Overton window of what's acceptable, there any violence necessary with maintaining an ethno-state,
Right,
as long as it's along some vaguely liberal principles, is okay.
The liberal etiquette that comes up is always don't politicize someone's death. And it's like the only excusable way to politicize someone's death is to start a war. You know, like if people die and then we go bomb a country, that's legit. But to say that like someone's death means that we need to fight for ideals of justice, then we get attacked for politicizing someone's death.
What's particularly repugnant about this cottage industry on the liberal centrist side of punching left and attacking Antifa is that it always comes from a place of bad faith, and ultimately it's not a realistic debate, because you're just debating made up shit that shows up on Fox News that is used to gin up the anger of scared old white people. And as well, it is quite rich that people like Beinart or Chade or the other unnamables.
Mark Lillo was the other one that came up.
Sure, they can sit back and criticize people like members of Antifa or the Black Lives Matter movement, which are both amorphous, protean movements with no real leadership structure, criticize people who go out in the streets and face off against Nazis, and criticize their tactics in terms of, this is bad optics. This is not a good communication strategy. If I were in charge of Black Lives Matter, here's what I would do. And it's like, you're not. You don't do shit. You don't do anything. Who the fuck are you to sit around?
That's the fundamental flaw in all of their analysis of how to deal with these emergent public displays of fascism, is because I think that if you ask them and you got sort of a universe, okay, what would you say? What would you do if you could order everyone to do something? I think they would say, ignore them, sir. You should just let them have their parade and just give them none of the attention and oxygen that they crave. And you know what? I can't even tell them that wouldn't work in some vacuum. I don't know. But the thing is, that's literally impossible and will never happen, because these are people going out in the street, intentionally being provocative, intentionally saying with all of the fucking air in their lungs that a huge segment of their fellow Americans don't deserve to live. That is going to bring people out in response. It is going to. So you cannot, your smug fucking suggestion that everyone ignore them. Okay, fine. That's nice. Congratulations that you have that idea. It's not going to happen. You have to start from the assumption that people are going to want to engage with that kind of public, as we said, violence. And they're not willing to do that because yeah, as Virgil is saying, they imagine themselves as able to dictate from their fucking op-ed pages and their Twitter accounts on what people are going to do in a real world where people have actual skin in the game and are not doing everything from the position of a totally removed, totally secure white dude in their goddamn pied-à-terre making decisions for everybody else.
Right, like you had Mark Lillo was in the Wall Street Journal, like the day before this shit went down.
The main
saying,
paper of the resistance.
Yeah, I mean, he was saying that I don't understand what it's like to be a black guy driving a car, so you got to explain it to me. You know, it's on you. It's on you to convince me what that's like and that it matters and that I need to care about it.
But they're already trying to claim her. The people who criticize everything
Right.
about the entire spectrum
The
she
people who
belonged
never
to.
would have
The
gone out there in a million
entire-
fucking years to actually protest.
Yeah, the people. Yeah, who criticize the entire spectrum that she belonged to. Anna fucking Navarro, who has fucking bragged about her dad's time with the Contras, said Heather's favorite color was purple and she stood against racism. Yeah, and your dad would have fucking killed her if she was Nicaraguan.
Yeah.
Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Any of them.
Felix, to that point, like about these people, and like what's worse is like when confronted with like the reality of like organized fascist violence in the streets, they always talk about claiming something for themselves. They just make it about them and to protect themselves yet again from criticism from their left, to go, okay, now it's really serious. The president is openly supporting white supremacy. Time to get on board and fight the real enemy, guys. And it's just like, you're not doing shit. You're not fighting anyone. Why would anyone join with you or give you the benefit of the doubt or hold fire on you or just like reserve our criticism of you and your rotten politics because shit's got real now. Time to just, you know what? Before I was critical of the Center for American Progress, but now I think we really have to join up with them.
This is the 87th time
because
shit
you
got
need them.
real.
Because it's not like they were the people whose incompetent campaign and awful policies and shithead view of the world are why this fucking maniac is the president.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I want to clarify, like, dude, we weren't there. Like, these are way better people than us for fucking being there. Like, fucking God bless them. But to say now is really the time to fall together after you shit on all these people before it
Those
became
exact
apparent
people.
they were standing directly against the thing you claimed to
And
be
you know
against.
who
and everything you did when you were in power 8 fucking years, we ended up here. We can't talk about that.
You know who was politicizing her death was her friend who was there with her who had to watch her die, and her mom who has to mourn her. They've both been saying that her death means that we just have to make sure this shit doesn't keep happening, and that we have to fight for a world where it's not a possibility.
And I think Felix brings up a good point that I really want to underscore. I mean, we're talking, as we normally do, about a lot of these shitheads who we hate, and we're just like, this is kind of like, we got to get it off our chest because these fucking people are so infuriating. But I don't think we should let the show pass without bringing up the people who are mostly nameless, who were on that campus in the middle of that torchlit parade, standing in the sea of those fucking chud pieces of shit Nazi assholes in their Under Armour polos and fucking Citronella t-shirts, chanting, standing in the middle of all of that, saying, with a banner that says, we're against this, fuck you. And then the people in the street who also fucking stood up bravely against these assholes. Again, most of them, we don't know their names, but I don't think like we can talk about all the assholes who are annoying us without really understanding again the bravery of the people who stood up against this.
Right.
Can we shout someone out?
Please.
Did you guys see that picture of the guy using a spray paint can as a flamethrower
Hell yeah.
against the Nazis? I mean, how fucking cool was that?
Also,
And he was an elder
Just
care
the
worker.
Ingenuity. He's an elder care worker, and I don't know if you saw in this
He was
picture.
protecting-
He's
yeah.
protecting this hunched over old white guy who looks like he runs the general store in like a 1940s western.
Yeah.
And
A guy you give 1 gold coin to and he
this
gives
is
you 3 horses.
This was right, exactly. Like, this is what people were doing out there, was protecting each other.
I remember seeing the fucking alt-right piece of shit saying, this man had a flamethrower at the event. That is a chemical weapon.
He didn't even have a flamethrower. He it rigged a fucking new weapon out of a spray paint can and a lighter. That shit is awesome.
Yeah, by the way, flamethrower. That's hilarious. And mace. What the fuck is with these people? They always talk about they're using mace against us. These assholes came armed to the teeth with real fucking guns. I love these people. Like, they have some conception where every conceivable weapon other than a gun is some sort of horrible thing that's beyond the pale.
This is the furthest reactionaries use the norms of liberalism. To break them, they fall back on them to defend themselves by saying, "Well, that's not right. You're not supposed to bring flamethrowers to a protest."
Yeah,
we're nonviolent. We're being nonviolent. Yeah, we talk a lot of shit, but we're nonviolent.
And Matt, this is something you've spoken on before. I think that's absolutely important. The way these people always fall back on this idea of free speech. That's their little totem, because they don't quite yet have the confidence to say ethno-state genocide is what we actually believe in. So they say we're standing up for free speech.
Yeah, well, Trilburn pointed out that Matthew Heimbach dickhead was standing in front of the courthouse in Virginia the other day protesting some horrible treatment of his asshole friends or something. And he was talking about how it was so unfair that they didn't get any help from the police. They had their permits while wearing a shirt featuring the leader of the Romanian Iron Guard, who in 1941 perpetrated a fucking pogrom against the Jewish population of Budapest that involved hanging them on hooks in a fucking slaughterhouse.
I mean, the thing is, he
doesn't give a shit about fucking free speech.
The concept of free speech, the way we talk about it, is so abstract. Like, yeah, you have free speech if you're a dead corpse that a Nazi just killed. So what? You know, like, that abstraction doesn't mean shit if you are actually under threat.
And this is where, you run up against, the limits of the liberal worldview, in that you have a group of people that, like I said, must be stated again, are dedicated to morally and philosophically to the idea and practice of genocide against races they regard as biologically inferior to them, will use every pillar of liberal culture and society to protect themselves until they have enough power to take it away from everyone else. They don't believe in free speech. They don't believe in fucking human rights. They don't believe in non-violence. And the way fucking people fall for this over and over again is stunning.
I'm kind of worried that AutoZone has fired Nazi Jeff. I'm not sure a private company should have this much power.
People who don't give a shit when people get fired for participating in BDS marches or any shit like that.
Union drives.
Yep. I do want to say one thing about the sort of broad reactionary movement that we kind of talked about before we even recorded our episode yesterday. And that is, I think that this is going to be a turning point, because it's a turning point that you see in all reactionary groups, be they, fucking Jabhat al-Nusra or the Taliban or this. And that is, people start out, they get attracted to the big names, the Jack Priloseks, the moderate rebels, and it's very exciting and transgressive for them.
The alt-light people, the media stars,
Yeah.
the periscopers, the streamers.
Right, before all the major infighting started. Then the infighting started, and you see there's someone more extreme, and it's, the NPI people or the fucking, anything to the right of those guys. And hey, shit, you know what? If you're a male from a dominant group who feels like time has passed him up, and if you lived 500 years ago, you wouldn't be sad and dislocated and a fucking loser. Like anyone who joins,
you would have been issued a girlfriend. Don't forget that.
You're not going to drift towards the moderate. You're going to go even farther. If you feel like you're in a war all the time because you hate your life, yeah, moderates don't last in war. So these people drifted further to the right. But now that it's real, I think this is going to be the part where some people get off the train, because they didn't really imagine they would have to answer this much. A big thing about being transgressive in that reactionary sense is the very middle class, and this is the middle classness of this movement that informs it, the very middle class sentiment that you can snap back to safety anytime you want.
Yeah.
And it's
that none of this shit has consequences, that it's just lows.
Yeah. Oh, for the lulls, it's just bant, doing the bants.
Well, it's also a good counterpoint when you brought up that this is a middle class movement and also an upper class movement, that a lot of
fucking polo shirts.
opportunists say that on the center say that this is the fault of Bernie Sanders, who said before the election we should think about the material conditions of these people,
economic anxiety.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, well, no, it's all racist, but the people who have the means, the wherewithal to drive from Ohio or Oregon or Maine to Virginia in order to go to a weekend Nazi rally are not out of work coal miners.
Yeah, I mean, Frank Rich said, no more
Right.
hillbilly elegies after this, which, hey, fuck that book. But, you think those were fucking hillbillies, you dumb piece of shit?
Dude,
all
Rick-
those people grew up in subdivisions.
Richard Spencer has a master's degree.
Yeah.
We're not talking about hillbillies here.
You know what hillbillies were there? Redneck Revolt.
Redneck Revolt
Protecting
was
people.
there,
Yeah.
fucking up some Nazis.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so I think we should. This is a good segue. I think we should also talk about. We talked about sort of the annoying assholes of the sort of centrist liberals and their just supreme misapprehension of the situation and their own rather nauseating ass covering in the light of the fact that they've now basically helped co-sign another major right-wing talking point that I'm sure will be a new brainworm that I'm sure will be infesting us all for the next 5 to 10 years at least. We should take the centrist advice and talk about the right and their reaction to this, beginning with the president, which was, again, let's not mistake ourselves at all. He made a tepid statement decrying bigotry. He read off a teleprompter. And then less than 24 hours later, gave a press conference where, don't kid yourself, he went out of his way to apologize for and promote just white supremacy violence and the same people who did this shit. And pretending like they weren't all Nazis or something ridiculous like that.
They just love statues.
They love
statues.
Fucking statues, man.
And in his own,
Well, I'm sure there was at least one
guy
person there with a
it's
Polaroid
the statue
camera.
nerd. You know what?
This is a type of copper that we don't make anymore.
Let me tell you.
That's funny on two fronts. One, most Confederate statues are mass-produced shit.
Garbage, chintzy shit.
That are aesthetically garbage. And two, the hilarity of aesthetic lectures and historical lectures coming from one of the biggest Philistine shitheads in human history.
Well,
I can't believe they wanted to take down the statue of Zeus.
So listen, I'm from State College, Pennsylvania, where Penn State University is, and we had the Joe Paterno statue, which stood for months after everybody knew he basically was enabling a pedophile to run a charity that he poached little boys from, and people rallied to defend that shit. This kind of mentality about hero worship
Shuja
bleeds into all over American society.
I'm glad you brought that up because a friend of mine proposed a compromise. Now that Confederate statues are under attack, Nancy Pelosi came out with a statement demanding that the Confederate statues in the U.S. Capitol, or the statues of Confederates, be taken down. This is a compromise. We take down every Confederate statue and replace them with a statue of Joe Paterno. This will appease 100% of the country.
Oh, yeah.
It's win-win.
All of the
It's really win-win.
All the Confederate defenders will be like, all right, that's fine.
And then
The real solution will come when America is part of the glorious caliphate and all representative artists band is around.
Did you see that clip of the protest of there's a statue of Lenin in Seattle?
Yeah.
And there were 5 people protesting it? Jack fucking Prostate posted a video of 5 people with signs that were not even grammatically correct. Lenin equals Hitler.
And Marxist bigotry.
Marxist bigotry.
Got him. By the way,
Also, that statue is privately owned and on private property, so you're lucky they didn't shoot you.
So that's the shit that you're supposed to be defending, right? Private property?
Hold on a sec. Matt brought up, I think, an interesting point just a second ago. Matt, where you talked about how most of these Confederate statues are cheaply made chintzy bullshit. And I think it's important to point out why, which is that almost all of them were not erected centuries ago, but in the 60s as a deliberate affront to the civil...
Basically, whenever the Klan spiked, there was a huge explosion in signs going, in Confederate statues and monuments going up.
Yeah. I mean, I love the argument around it. Like, people aren't going to know their history if we don't know the statues. Like, most people learn by taking walks and seeing statues and going like, oh, I didn't know we had a civil war.
Well,
we've all
How would,
read
you know
about it.
how would you know about animals if zoos didn't exist?
Yeah.
Yeah, this idea that it's erasing history. It's erasing history to put them up in the fucking first place.
It can't be said
Right.
enough. I thought this was common knowledge that the statues came up for that reason, and for the same reason that the Confederate flag was put on multiple state flags in service of the great lie that the Southern cause was good or decent, or these were decent fucking people who died fighting for slavery, or in opposition to desegregation.
Like the other element to this is like, again, there's the sort of alt-right and alt-light people. The alt-light people are already heading for the exits because these people, as we've discussed before, basically only just want to be media celebrities. They want the next book deal. They want the next Fox News appearance or their rebel media network bullshit. They can see the writing on the wall. Fucking, what is it? Cernovich is now being like, I'm no longer Trump. I'm just about journalism. And fucking Baked Alaska was like, yo, we got to come together. We got to stop calling each other SJ Dubs and Nazis, you know? Like, so like the alt-light people and their fellow travelers, I think they see the writings on the wall and they're heading for the exits. The other more hardcore people, it's yet to be seen how they're going to react. They're sort of debating whether they should, be a little bit more quiet about some of their more explicit goals. But then, of course, there is the broader conservative movement and Republican Party in general. And I want to talk a little bit about how now the appearance of this idea that they're the silent majority of Republicans that are actually shocked and horrified by Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, fuck these people. Seriously.
I can't wait till 2019 where Trump christens the next battleship like the SS Jerry Sandusky Adolf Hitler. And we're going to hear about all the Republicans in private who are fed up. And then, none of them actually do anything.
And here's
about
the
it.
idea. Like I said, Trump gave a press conference where he all but openly praised white supremacy, and now like there are murmurings of, oh, this is simply too much. He's unfit for office. Here's the deal: as long as he passes tax reform, they'll let him say and do whatever the fuck he wants.
Well, it's
okay?
interesting, Will, because first off, he isn't going to pass tax reform. That's also going to blow up in his face. But second of all, I saw the other day yet another one of those articles. This might be the 100th one I've seen. That is time for Republicans to say where you stand. This is in Politico. And you can guess what it is. This article pops up every fucking week that something repugnant happens. It's, Republicans, you're better than this. We're better than this. And the mirror image of that is the liberals who are the centrists who are like, actually, Trump is uniquely dangerous. This week's events show that.
Right.
And we keep fucking seeing it. And I'm sorry, if you didn't realize this guy was a fucking Nazi from the second he went down that fucking elevator in his cocksucking building, then you're an imbecile. You should never, ever be listened to. He talked about putting Muslims on a fucking list. He talked about torturing family members, children of alleged terrorists. It's been a white nationalist movement from the start, and fuck you for pretending otherwise.
Well, how many people who've had tut-tutting of him to do this week for his awful racism have in the past voted for mandatory minimum sentences for drugs or fucking voter disenfranchisement? Give me a fucking
I mean, you
break.
had both like Mitt Romney and Chris Christie both said some stuff about actually, the sides weren't equivalent. We have to be against white supremacy. It's like you're gonna go clean Trump's toilet with toothbrushes tomorrow morning.
The
Yeah, but
estate,
they didn't
you're
say
not-
his name. They didn't fucking say his
Yeah,
name.
yeah, they didn't actually call him out. They just,
the estate of George Wallace has come out with a statement. We are better than this.
Dr. Mengele's head in a jar in Argentina has said, sir.
So yeah, this is all completely disingenuous. I'd say save it to all of these assholes. Seriously,
For me, what's the most galling of all of it is that now there are many people who, prior to this would have decried the alt-left or the Bernie bros or whatever, and now saying, I'm alt-left. That's a bad
yeah.
thing.
Oh,
that
yeah.
The president
Oh, yeah.
says is bad. Well, I'm alt-left. Alt-left means gay people. It means supporters of charter school apps. It's the whole resistance is
Yeah.
alt-left.
I mean, the whole concept of it was to say that like this is the part of the left that hates POC. And
And
now
at the end of the day, it comes back to something that like you and I have spoken about, Will, that ultimately the people who are putting themselves on the line here are members of radical leftist political organizations. They're rabble-rousers. They are members of the DSA and the BLM and the IWW. And if the institutional establishment, center, left, whatever you want to call it, wants to take credit for that, if they want to rely on these radicals as a barrier between them and fascism, if radicals are going to bleed and die in that fight, then radicals should lead that coalition.
Absolutely. And what's more, it's, I mentioned this earlier this week. If those, as you said, centrists would like now to say, we are the alt-left, I just only wish there was some sort of ritual act of submission or contrition they could do to the people who they've slandered relentlessly for years now.
Some type of physical action
Just
that
some sort of
represents
physical
something.
act that's like a display, or maybe sort of like a pithy phrase used in a popular television show. I don't know.
I know. Bosch, you've gone too far. They have to say that to all of us.
Doctor Who, I love you.
Bazinga.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, like exactly. Like it is hilarious to watch these people. Like as the alt-right is also backpedaling, it is hilarious to watch these people backpedal.
Oh, yeah.
too. It is hilarious. Again, like like I said, let's welcome them with open arms. If,
I agree.
If the Share Blue, the Share Blue army wants to, get out there in the streets and, fight fascism, I say, let's do it.
I have one Share Blue guy in mind who may be good at that. I think you guys know who I'm talking about.
I mean, I know like a lot of these individuals act in bad faith and are still acting in bad faith and can just be, disregarded as cranks. But a number of them actually do see the writing in the wall in increasing numbers since the election that, even if we do support policy positions that tack closer to the center and the status quo, we know that's totally not tenable. And it's not tenable for us to be hostile to the left. A good example of that is Iglesias, right? Right after the election said, fuck, we were wrong. No, Bernie would have won.
But another thing that I've been thinking about this week, or at least it's been sort of crystallized in my mind, we talked about a lot of these really annoying people that'll mostly go unnamed. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. Like, it's been a running joke that I've certainly been a part of for a long time, which is, making fun of these assholes on Twitter and the ridiculous, idiotic things they say. But I feel like I've got to the point now where obviously making fun of them is fun, and I think there is an effect that people who are otherwise not radical can sometimes, if you through humor can see, or you can pierce the sort of pomposity and ignorance of these people, and I think there's something useful in that. But now, as far as I'm concerned, especially in the wake of what's happened in Charlottesville, I just think there's no point in even engaging and making fun of these people anymore, because the vast majority of them are fucking nobodies who would have no attention.
They don't represent larger groups in the electorate. I mean, I always thought there was never really a point, except to the extent that some of them actually do have the ear of powerful people who are epistemically close. Like, for instance, Obama read David Brooks every fucking week. Wasn't that right? That's one of the most frightening things.
I mean, how did we think that Obama was so smart if he's reading David Brooks's column?
Yeah, but to go back to the point, I mean, this to echo what T said on our show a few weeks ago, to sort of if you see to respond to the charge that the alt left, quote unquote, is the one who wants to make common cause with racists, or make a separate peace with fascism or whatever, or doesn't stand for against racism. Don't even respond to it. I know it's galling, but you have to understand what these people are doing, which is they have nothing. They have nothing. So just keep talking.
Well, I mean, they have nothing in terms of an argument or a coherent worldview or a useful praxis, but what they do have is they are speaking on behalf of a hegemonic liberalism that is going to get us all fucking killed.
It's got a lot of money.
I
behind it.
agree, don't talk to them, but because they're distraction from the real fucking problem, which is that fascism arises because of the collapse of institutional legitimacy of liberal institutions. And that's how we got fucking Trump. It's how we're going to get what's coming next after him that's going to be even worse. Because if you think there's not going to be more ecological and economic catastrophes in the future that liberalism is wholly unsuited to fucking deal with, and that failure is not going to lead to fascism filling that fucking hole, you got another thing coming. And that's what these guys are. These guys who marched in Charlottesville, these are the people who are aware of the unspoken premise of this sort of zombie neoliberalism we're living in, which is that we're coming at a point where there's going to be ecological catastrophe, and it's going to either require mass redistribution of the ill-gotten gains of the first world or genocide. And these are the first people who have basically said, well, if that's the choice, I choose genocide. And they're getting everybody else ready intellectually and emotionally for why that's going to be okay when it happens. Why they're not really people. When we're putting all of this money into more fucking walls and drones and bombs and guns to keep them away, and so that we can watch them die with clear consciences, it's going to be because we've been loaded with the ideology that these guys are now starting to express publicly. On the other side of them, you have people who are saying in full fucking voice, no, we have the resources to save everybody, to give everybody a fucking decent and worthwhile existence. And that is what we want. And that is the fucking real difference between these two. So you can tell that to the next asshole who tells you that they're actually two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
You know what's going to happen?
Yes, yeah.
You know what's going to happen is that the majority of people, the majority of Americans who don't vote, who don't participate in the political process, when they start to look at this, they're going to see the Nazis, the apocalyptic destroyers of the world on one side, and on the other, they're going to see the DSA, Black Lives Matter. They're going to see Antifa. And what they're not going to see is they're not going to see Hillary Clinton out there. They're not going to see Center for American Progress or Share Blue or whatever the fuck those organizations are. Brookings.
Peter Beinart,
all the
whatever,
fucking
yeah.
think tanks that are dedicated to preserving stability and order in the liberal tradition. They're not out there fighting that fight. It's the left that's fighting that fight. And the apolitical masses, they're starting to see that now.
And I may not be the 2x2 Tetris piece, but I'm Black Block.
I mentioned them before. I know this will come as a shock to them, but let's also shout out some of the Marxist-Leninist groups as well. Some of the more or Maoist
By the way, let's also shout out "fuck you" again, Ben C. Jacobs. We said "fuck you" on the Chelsea Manning episode when she was freed. Then you got body slammed by that Italian man who was running for office, which I frankly, I hope he had a big breakfast that day and that it really fucking smarted, because then
I hope he gets off the top rope splash from Blake Farthenthal.
He goes out yesterday and says to people raising money, which, by the way, we retweeted this too, to get some of the people who tore down that statue, that Confederate statue,
right.
To bail them out in Durham, to bail them out. He goes, I'm not sure if you're aware, but the person who was arrested is a Maoist who defends North Korea, and so I'm not sure if I want them out of jail. It's just fuck you, you're useless.
I'm not sure I want them out of jail. Can we get that Republican to have a fight with him again?
Yeah.
That was, by the way.
I gotta say, I mean, we've made fun of tankies on this show, but how awesome would it have been if in Charlottesville the tankies had actual tanks?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
That was something beautiful I saw this morning when in Durham. Hundreds of people went to the police station and turned themselves in solidarity with a woman who was arrested for tearing down the statue and saying, I was also there. I also tore down the statue. And that's something that we've seen for the past week. Just small and large acts of generosity and solidarity and moral clarity that has made me prouder than ever to consider myself someone who stands with the left.
Yeah, and I just want to say conclusively, 100%, we're going to fix all the problems. And that's it.
I had a buddy who was there in Charlottesville, and he just published his report on it at Viewpoint, and he said that at the on the right, you saw this really strict hierarchy that had the celebrity PewDiePies and Baked Alaskas at the top, who were kind of being protected.
Baked
by
Alaska was
everybody
yelling,
else.
"I'm a VIP. I'm a VIP."
Exactly. It's like that's the polar opposite of what you were seeing on the left.
And
It's almost like hierarchy versus egalitarianism is the defining fucking difference between the two, and you'd have to be a complete blinkered moron to be confused about that point.
Yeah, I was saying that to my bodyguard the other day.
Yeah, we once and for all, we're going to say everyone on the left is equal underneath us.
Right.
Well, I mean, it was the refrain during the UK election, like the Corbyn Labour Party, the slogan "We are many, they are few."
Mm-hmm.
That was true then. It's abso-fucking-lutely true about us and these alt-right fucking chuds. They're like I said, it's deadly fucking serious what's going on right now. But there are more of us than them by a fucking long shot. And like I said, through solidarity and like I said, like the acts of bravery that we've seen coming out of Charlottesville, I think these fuckers are not long for this world. And I don't mean that in a violent sense. I mean it like they're going away. Wink. They're going back to the They're going back to.
We're going back to gaming.
They're going back to fucking hiding like the fucking snakes that they are.
Oh, no, they're getting kicked out of gaming too.
Yeah, no, there's no refuge anymore. No more gaming.
They're going to Mahjong.
Yeah. All right. I mean, I think that's as good a place as any to wrap it up. Shuja, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
And like I said, and I think in the description to this article, I think we will have some links to donate for the legal fees for either the people who tore down that statue or medical fees for any of the people who were injured in Charlottesville. There'll be plenty more stuff like that. So just keep an eye out open in the show description if you want to help out. So until next time, guys.
I'll see you later.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.